We are joined here with Ben Griffin at the Travelers Championship. Ben, making your third consecutive start. What is it like to be teeing it up here at TPC River Highlands?
Only 3. That's weird for me. It's normally like 12 in a row. Yeah, it feels good. Excited to be back at the Travelers Championship. One of the I'd say player favorites of the year. They treat us so well. Really excited to play a golf course that's not quite as demanding as the last few weeks. Oh, you said third time at Travelers.
Travelers here, yeah.
I thought it was 3 events in a row. Yeah, it's actually only 2 in a row. This is like nothing. Anyways, yeah, great event. Travelers does an amazing job. Really excited to tee it up against the best players in the world, and hopefully get in the mix again.
Already 8 top 10s, including 2 wins this season and a top 10 last week. How are you feeling entering the week?
Yeah, I think I'm feeling pretty good. Game's in a really good spot. Had the results recently. It's really nice because this game can be very difficult from time to time, and you can have some good weeks that are maybe 20th. So it's nice for me to see some high results in big events. Just trying to continue to do the same things I've been doing. Continue to work hard and try to get back in the mix and get in contention again. I wasn't in the final group last week and was in my previous 2 starts, so I try to get back into that mode. It's really fun to compete on tour and be in the mix on Sundays.
Perfect. We're going to go ahead and open up. We have Kevin with microphone.
Hey Ben, I was wondering in terms of your typical recovery routine between tournaments, kind of Sunday night, Monday, what that kind of looks like in terms of the things you try to do every week, and then whether after the U.S. Open, is it more particularly important to hone in on that after a grueling week?
Yeah, I always try to take off at least a majority of one day coming off a tournament. So, going back to the start of the season, I played, I think, 12 or 13 events in a row or something like that. So generally speaking, we'll fly out Sunday night or Monday morning, just depending on the flight situation. And then Mondays are typically kind of an off day. If it's a course that I'm not as familiar with or has made changes, I might chip and putt some. Otherwise, not really swinging a club on Monday. Still goes back into the gym. I'm in the gym every single day, doing physio work every day except for Sundays after my physio travels, after the round, after I tee off on Sundays. So I see him Monday, so normally do a little bit more physio work if needed. But yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are hard days in the gym. Try to get sore. And then Thursday through Sunday, still pretty hard, but try not to get too sore. And just kind of continue on that momentum. But from a golf standpoint, it's normally 9 holes on Tuesday afternoon, late. So last night I went out at about 4:45 p.m. Just me and the grounds crew hanging out. Not really a whole lot of players out there, but it's kind of peaceful for me to do that. So I try to do that as often as possible. Other weeks I might go at like 1 or 2 o'clock and play with, my college roommate or college teammate, Ryan Gerard. I play a lot with him. He kind of has gotten on a similar schedule as me. 9 holes Wednesday Pro-Am and then kind of back to it. But I try not to play 18 holes consecutively on any given day until tournament time. So typically just 9 holes, and going back to the U.S. Open was 9 holes Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Just kind of keeping the days relatively short, although those practice round days, the 9 holes could take as much as 3.5 hours. So yeah, I'm pretty consistent. I don't really change a whole lot. The only thing that can vary is the travel day, depending on what event was prior and how far I've got to really travel. So traveling stuff on tour, you're on your own, so you got to try to figure out what's best for you.
And do you do any sort of like recapping tournaments in terms of delving into stats or journaling or thinking about stuff in terms of how you process the week that was, or do you pretty much just go right on?
Yeah, I'm not a huge stats guy. I'm really self-aware of kind of how my game is. I don't necessarily need to go and look at stats to know what probably wasn't going my way the previous week or what I needed to work on. So I don't really look at a lot of the shot link data or different things like that. Recently, I've been looking at more of the driving distance in comparison to other players. So like last week, the U.S. Open, I was 4th in distance. My goal is to try to get as close to first as I can right now this season by the end of the year. So just been trying to set little mini goals kind of like that maybe with the stats. Clean up the putter a little bit. Last week I struggled with a lot of 3 putts, but I made a lot of putts. So even though that's kind of a self-aware thing. Like I knew I struggled maybe with some lag putts from time to time, but like my 15 footers that I needed to save for par, I was making a lot of them. So a week like this, I need to clean up kind of those 4, 5, 6 footers and maybe make sure I got the speed dialed a little bit more on these greens. But a test like here at TPC River Highlands is a lot easier to figure out compared to Oakmont. So yeah.
You mentioned the driving distance goal. I know it can be relative based on how far you want to push up at different times, because last year I think you were outside top 100 in driving distance. I guess last year, how close, like if you were going all out, do you think you would have ranked last year?
70. Very, very much so middle, maybe slightly above average. And yeah, it's been a good goal of mine to try to increase that. I've watched way too many tournaments, seeing Rory McIlroy just overpower golf courses and take bunkers out of play. And, there's a lot of talk about the ball rollback and other hot topics like that about golf course design and, us players, certain players aren't playing the courses how they're kind of designed. But for me as a player, I've got to take advantage of the opportunity to be able to do that. And so it's been really fun to try to train harder and be more conscious of swinging harder and trying to make golf as easy as possible because it's a very difficult game.
All right, we have Keith.
Ben, oddly enough, I was going to ask you a goal question, and you just used the word like 5 times. But are you the type of person that sets, or player that sets goals, season-long goals, at the start of the year?
I don't set goals related to winning or like making a Ryder Cup. I won't set specific goals like that, but I'll set goals daily of what I kind of want to achieve on the day, and also maybe on like a weekly basis of what maybe I need to work on mentally to be in a better frame of mind, to play better, certain things like that, but nothing that compares me to other players. I won't set goals like that. I only set self goals that I can control.
All right, I'll change gears then. Let's go back to Mexico. Did something click around that time this year, or was it something you were building towards and then you were finally like, oh, I'm starting to really get this, but it was a week by week thing versus like, it seems like after, like if we look at your season, like a switch flip there, and next thing you know, you're winning multiple times, you're 8th on the Ryder Cup list, like things are happening.
Yeah, historically I struggle on the West Coast. I don't know if it's the type of golf. I'm just not that. I didn't grow up playing Poana greens. I didn't grow up playing much golf on the West Coast, and I've historically struggled the last couple years. However, this year I was playing physically. I felt like my game was in really good place, not only at Torrey but Pebble and Torrey again when we went back. And I wasn't finishing very high, but I knew my game was really good, and I knew I needed to. And I was struggling with my putting. My putting stats were bad. And I knew I was struggling with it out there, but I knew once I got away from Poana greens that I was going to putt really well. So I was never worried. It just was a matter of getting through the West Coast swing and getting into courses that I like a little bit more, and greens and grasses that I'm more familiar with. So going to Mexico, being Paspalum grass, very familiar with that. I lived in Sea Island, Georgia for majority of the last 6 years, and the plantation course there is Paspalum greens. And I have the course record there. I love that golf course, and I knew going to Mexico I was going to putt well, and it just came down to Mexico hitting it far. That's more of a bomber's golf course, and that was kind of right when I started training, so I actually wasn't hitting it that far. As far, I was pretty much middle of the pack, but I still finished 4th. And then as I continued to train and get stronger, some courses that I like got a little bit easier. Putting's still good. So yeah, I mean, after Mexico, I went to the Florida swing. Love the Florida swing. Love Bermuda grass. Putt really well on that grass. Really good out of judging lies out of the rough. So if I miss fairways or around the greens, I'm really good at that type of stuff. So I knew I was going to play well there, and then kind of just progressed. And then was honestly playing very well. I just was 51 in the world. Didn't get the Masters. I think I could have easily played really well at the Masters, but I just had to kind of wait to win. And then same with RBC Heritage. I felt really good about my game, but I had back-to-back off weeks there, and I was first alternate, didn't get in the field. Was kind of bummed. Novak finished his second, so I know he's playing really well. I know I'm playing well, even though I hadn't played 2 weeks in a row. And so when we went to Zurich, I knew it was going to be a really good week for both of us. Andrew definitely helped me a lot early in the week. He was playing phenomenal, and then we did a really good job. I played really well on the weekend on Saturday, and then alternate shot, and so we ham and egged it perfect, which is what you have to do at that event. But yeah, I mean, now going into the rest of the year, I mean, all these, I love the rest of the summer in terms of the golf courses, the types of grass that I'm playing on. I've struggled on the West Coast swing, so I'm pretty much every year on tour. I haven't gotten off to that great of a start. I always play well at the Amex. I always play well at Sony Open. So the Amex, I finished top 10 the last 2 years. Sony Open, I think I have maybe a top 10. And this year I didn't play great on Sunday and probably finished middle of the pack. But I think Sony Open, I haven't played as well, just coming off an off season. I just need to be a little bit more sharper. So it'll be interesting this year playing Maui and then going into that. I'm sure I'll probably play a lot better at Sony. But yeah, sorry that was a really long answer, but yeah, I just kind of kept going. Yeah, probably some good juicy stuff.
Back to Kevin.
Kind of a random one, but are you aware, or what would you guess the record PGA Tour sanctioned golf for most consecutive birdies in a round?
Most consecutive ever? I mean, it's got to be 7 or 8.
9. So
9?
that was set in 1994, and so much scores have gotten lower and lower in a lot of different ways and stats you measure, but that one has kind of locked at 9. And I'm curious what your take would be on why that is the record, and with how good you guys are, no one's ever made more than 9 in a row.
I don't know necessarily. What year was that?
1994.
Yeah, so I got to imagine golf courses weren't as firm, greens weren't as fast, and the rough wasn't as penal back in 1994 as it is nowadays. Nowadays, I think with technology, superintendents and rules officials and staff setting up golf courses have to be really strategic to make it really challenging for the modern day golfers. So you've got to have thick rough, you have to have firm greens, you have to maybe tuck the pins maybe a little bit more. So I think that's probably why that record has. Who's been the closest? Has there been like 7 in a row in the last couple of years? I'm sure there maybe has.
Yeah, and then here it was a few years ago, but Kevin Streelman made 7 in a row to win. 12 to 18.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was nuts. Yeah, I think it's just probably setup. Course setup is probably a little more challenging. So, whereas maybe in 1994 it was a little bit easier to get on a green and have a good chance to make putts. You just had to get hot with the putter. Whereas nowadays you can be on some of these greens and have crazy putts, or you just barely miss a fairway and it's just like you can't really get it on the green. Whereas maybe in 1994 you could get it on the green from the rough. So, I'd say that's probably why that stat has held up. Who did it?
Omar Uresti.
Man, he must have. Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's a cool stat for him to have. I don't think he's in danger probably, as long as we're playing difficult golf courses. Although this week this is soft and I shouldn't say slow because the greens are still fast, but the course feels the most scoreable I've ever seen it since I started coming here, and so. I feel like this could be a year where maybe not 9 in a row, but the winning score could be maybe a record breaker. I don't know what the lowest winning score is ever here, but probably 24, 25, 26 under. I could easily see that this week.
And then a different topic, JJ Spaun winning the U.S. Open. I know he had talked about thinking about stepping away and calling his college coach for a teaching job. And I know you have a similar experience of feeling almost a little burnout earlier in your career. And I was wondering, I guess, first of all, what you know about JJ and if you've spent any time with him, and then just what his story kind of does, just seeing it as a fellow pro.
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing. He's the American Nick Taylor right now, winning the National Open with a bomb on 18. So cool. Such an amazing moment. I didn't see it live. Unfortunately, I was driving, but I got a few text messages right when it happened and saw the footage shortly after that when I got done driving to the airport. But, yeah, such an amazing finish for him. And, his stories, very similar to mine. I mean, he played on the McKenzie Tour, the Canadian Tour. Now it's the PGA Americas Tour. He won the same event that I won, the Thunder Bay Stall Open. He won it 4 or 5 years prior to me, maybe. And yeah, it's it's really cool to see. You know, he's had a really good year, and obviously what happened at the Players, I think was probably a little tough on him. Just the way that went down in the playoff, even though it was extremely difficult conditions. And I know as a player just how tough it was probably to judge that shot on 17. You know, not many people play in conditions like PGA Tour players do when you have grandstands and where you don't really have flags showing the wind. And the wind, you have these little wind tunnels that kind of go through grandstand areas, and it's just really tough. If he hits it super low, the wind's not going to touch it, and if he hits it high, it's going to get smoked. But yeah, it's such an amazing moment. So happy for him. I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last few years being on the PGA Tour. He's an amazing guy, and couldn't be happier for him and his caddy Mark Cairns getting the job done and winning there, because it was. I mean, I finished at 5 over par, but there was a moment there coming down the stretch after I birdied 16 where I was like, man, if I could eagle 17, birdie 18, and post two over, like, you never know right now because the scores were just coming back so much. So I thought it was a very fair test, and I thought it was awesome that he was able to execute some really high quality shots down the stretch and make birdies. And yeah, I don't know what he was feeling on that 70-footer, but I know if I was in that position, it's one of those putts where you're just somehow get it up there on the right tier and have 3, 4, or 5 feet, and you're doing an incredible job. And to make it, I mean, that's one of the coolest moments in sports, in my opinion.
Perfect. That's all we have. Ben, thank you for the time. Good luck this week.
Thank you.
All right. All right.